Well, hello, DCO Nation. Welcome back to another DCO Live. I hope everybody down here in South Carolina and along the beach are staying warm. But we will definitely get to the weather because that is going to be pretty much the topic of tonight's discussion. But Steve, glad you're on. Russell, Dean, Anthony Miller, appreciate you guys being on. So let's kind of dive into maybe last week, kind of bring you up to speed of kind of what's kind of been going on in my life right now. One, I haven't been fishing. Last weekend, it rained, and then on Sunday, I was gonna go fishing, but it rained a little bit in the morning, and then the wind came up really early. I was watching the weather forecast, and they really weren't calling for the winds to pick up till about noon. Well, excuse me, by the time I got up and started moving around, the trees were already starting to sway. I checked the weather and it was already 12, 13, 14 miles an hour. So I never even went fishing last week. So I haven't been on the water now for, gosh, it's probably been pushing about 3 weeks. And I got to tell you, man, I am ready to get out and do some fishing. Not going to be able to do any fishing this weekend. It's still going to be really cold. We've had this cold front come through and this snow that dumped on us. But we will definitely get to that because that is the big story down here right now. But what I did do last weekend was I went down to Charleston, and it was Hadroll Point's fishing expo last weekend. So here's the actual card that I picked up. They have it every year, and I'm not exactly sure how long it's been going on. I know of probably at least 3 years, but I think it's been longer than that. It may be, pushing 5 or 6 years, but then again, I'm not exactly sure. It's kind of in the Mount Pleasant area, I guess it would be, of Charleston. It's right before you go over the Ravenel Bridge. It was in a building called the Omar Shriners Auditorium. And I got there probably right around 10 o'clock. And the parking lot was packed. People were already starting to park along the streets. And I think they're probably going to have to end up moving this thing because it's starting to grow to the point where they're running out of parking. So, yeah, it was a great expo. There's a ton of people that are there, all kinds of vendors. Z-Man, Daiwa, Shimano, Penn. There's some boat manufacturers, AFCO. Gosh, I probably should have went around and got everybody who was there. Release Over 20 was there. Voodoo, which I can't remember. I think it's Egret Baits, but they had their Voodoo shrimp out there. So, I went down there, I walked around, I met up with the guys at Release Over 20 and talked to David Flatt a little bit and Carrie Browning. And I entered their raffle and their giveaway. And I think they said they ended up raising maybe $1,200 or $1,500, which is awesome. They are a nonprofit organization, so a lot of that goes towards just the stickers they give away and anything else, small cost to keep this thing running for Release Over 20. But I entered the raffle and I won. I couldn't believe it. I never win anything. I am always the guy that enters these things and, basically, hey, it was my donation, glad to do it. But I actually won. So Carrie Browning is holding my raffle prizes. And so I'm going to try to make it down there here in the next couple of weeks and pick that up. And then as soon as I get it, I'll break it out for all you guys and we'll take a look at what's all in it. So, Dean, good to see you. Tim, great to see you, buddy. Everett, glad you made it on tonight. So I don't know if you guys knew about the expo down there, but it's usually held the same time, that mid-January time frame. So next year, about this time. Keep an eye out for it and go down there. It was $7 to get in, and they had a bunch of seminars. C.A. Richardson was there. He did a seminar. I sat in on Captain Tanya Dowding's seminar. It was called Artificial Intelligence Can Amp Up Your Fishing Game. If you guys don't know who Captain Tanya is, she is absolutely fantastic. She is a guide with Real Chica Charters, and I have met her a couple different times and been kind of following her for several years down there in Charleston and guiding, and she is absolutely fantastic, knowledgeable. And if you guys follow her on Instagram, Real Chica, I think is what it is, and on Instagram, you can see the big redfish that she pulls in. She is absolutely fantastic, very personable. She will answer any questions that you guys would shoot down to her. I cannot, speak more highly of Captain Tanya. She is fantastic. So look her up, give her a follow. She doesn't really know me. We've met a couple different times, but she doesn't really know me. But she's awesome. She's awesome. So I kind of want to dive in. I got 2 questions here in the last week to 10 days, and I went ahead and I threw them up there. So one of them was, what kind of pedal drive do I use on my kayak? That is one of the things that I don't talk too much about is my kayak. I am a kayak fisherman. I do not own a boat. I own a kayak, and I own a Hoodoo Impulse 120. It's a 12-foot kayak, and it's a pedal drive. They used to offer a pedal drive and a fin drive. Excuse me. They no longer offer the pedal drive. It is only a fin drive. So, Keith, good to see you, buddy. So they only offer the fin drive now. I didn't go with the fin drive because it is what they call a unidirectional fin drive. It only goes forward. There is no reverse on that fin drive. So if I wanted to go in reverse, I would actually have to unclip it, flip it around, and put it back in and pedal to go in reverse. And then to go forward, unclip it, flip it around, put it back in, clip it back in, and start going forward. But the advantage of the pedal drive, and if you guys watch my videos at all, I touch on this quite a bit, is the instant reverse. Hands-free, instant reverse. I can be moving along, catch a fish, and start going backwards to back my way out of the spot. So I use a pedal drive, and I am absolutely sold on a pedal drive. I don't think I will ever go to a fin drive unless they have some kind of hands-free reverse that they can build onto these fin drives. But until then, you have to pull a cord, pull a string, or do something like that to go into reverse. Well, I like to be hands-free, so I do a pedal, and that's what I like. So I get it. The Mirage fin drives with Hobie are really good. I have never been on one. I don't know. Guys swear by them, but I like the pedal drive, and that's why I like it, is the instant hands-free reverse. So I thought that was a really good question, and one that I really don't touch on quite a bit. Yeah, that's what I use. The second one is, what lures am I going to be using when I go back out and start fishing again? So I went ahead and I put these together. I pulled out pretty much everything that I had in my kayak. I've got a small little hatch right in front of my seat, and these were all of the ones that I had right in there because the last week or so I've been maintaining my reels. I put new lines on all my reels. I greased everything up, put some drops of oil in. So, just doing that wintertime maintenance to keep everything, in tip-top shape. So when I do get back out there, I'm ready to go. But these are the baits that I've got in my kayak that I'm going to be throwing. So one is going to be a small creature bait. This is actually the jelly baits kick and critter. So, you know, you bass guys, you guys know this one. And I like throwing this on like a 1/8 or a 1/16 ounce and just running it right on the bottom and let this thing do its own little thing with the little tails up there. Or I can swim it. So I will actually hook these things so it comes out, so these little fins in the back will act like its tail and swim it. Okay, so that's two ways to actually rig this. I'm also going to use a Z-Man, and this is the 4-inch scented jerk shad. This is in smoky shad color. I like the natural colors. So I've actually had the deal color and smoky shad, so the 4-inch. And I may use this on like a 1/8 or a 3/16 ounce jig head and just kind of pop and jig this thing along. I love these. I also use a 3-inch paddle tail. This happens to be the minnows from Z-Man. This is actually in trout sickle color. It's like a purple color. It's a little bit translucent, but any type of a small 3-inch swim bait is what I'm going to be using. Next is going to be the TRD. So this is the Z-Man TRD. I don't know if you guys know about this one or not, but this is rigged on a 1/10 ounce mushroom head, a Ned head. And it's weedless. You can see the little weed guard, I think, hanging off of it, the little wires. And I will have this thing on the bottom and just sitting just like this and just letting this little tail work back and forth. I may drag it on the bottom a little bit, maybe get some little puffs of mud, doing things like that. But yeah, that's what I'm going to be using. I may hop it a little bit. This is a great bait to just dead stick. Just let it sit right on the bottom. So the Z-Man TRD. And again, this is in the deal color. I love this color. It looks really natural. So one of my favorite colors is the deal. The last one that I had in my kayak is the Z-Man Slim Swim. So a very small little paddle tail. Again, the Slim Swim, I'm trying to think maybe 3-inch, 2 or 3-inch, but it's a very small little thin profile. I think my camera kind of went out of focus. That may be a little bit better there. And again, I've got it on a little 1/10 ounce Ned head, and you can see the little weed guard on it, the little wire weed guard. And again, I'm popping that right on the bottom, dragging it a little bit, maybe swim it a little bit, but that's it. So a little bit low and slow right now during the winter time. That's going to be my technique, especially now with the water temperatures being where they are. And again, we're going to jump into that here very quickly because that's kind of the main story of kind of what's been going on down here. But you know, those two questions have been great, so I wanted to address those. So hopefully that helps you guys out. So let's go ahead and let's jump into the big story, the winter blast that came across the South. So if you guys are anywhere along the coast from Texas all the way across the Gulf Coast, Florida, I mean, you get into the northern states, South Carolina, but here in Myrtle Beach where I live, we got almost 5 inches of snow, which is absolutely unheard of. So that 5 inches of snow, I think the last time we got an accumulation like that has been about 25 years. So to have an Arctic blast like that come through the South is just an anomaly. Leading up to this snow that we got on, it started like Tuesday night into Wednesday. It was still pretty cold. That whole week leading up to it was cold. The water temperatures were cold. At that point, the NOAA website was tracking the ocean temperatures at Spring Maid Pier, which is right outside here in Myrtle Beach, and was at 45, 46 degrees. So, that's starting to get pretty cold water temperatures down here into the south. I just checked it today, and the water temperature at Spring Maid is 43 degrees. So that water temperature is actually taken kind of right at the surface of the water. So it's not going down deep. It's not, 8, 10, 12, 15 feet deep. It's right at the surface. Rule of thumb is those water temperatures are going to be warmer the further down you go. Now, if the wind is blowing, or if there's, if there's a ton of boat traffic and shallow water churning up that water, it is going to lower the water temperature in those deeper spots. Okay, it's almost like taking a spoon in a hot cup of soup and, rotating it and spinning it around and churning in some cooler water, to cool down a bowl of soup. So that's kind of what's happening there. So the water temperatures are about 43 degrees. Now, the big question that everybody wants to know is, how are the trout going to fare with these water temperatures? Well, I got onto the internet and I started to do a bunch of research on it. And a matter of fact, I linked in the description an article that I read today, which was really good. It was from a doctor in the marine fisheries up in North Carolina. And again, matter of fact, let me share the screen here real quick with you guys, and I will show you the article. So here's the article, and again, I have this link in my description. So if you guys want to go read this, go and check that out. But he talks about, they don't call it a trout kill, they call it a stunning effect, or a cold stun, S-T-U-N. So these trout will actually be stunned, roll up, and then it takes several days, and then they'll start to die. Obviously, smaller fish will be affected first because they can't take the water temperatures like larger fish can. So that is going to be one of the things that, we really want to start watching over the next couple of days. Now, I was on Facebook today. There was a picture that came across that showed some dead fish along a beach. I don't know where it was at. It could have been in Texas. It could have been Louisiana, Florida. I don't know. But, it has affected a lot of these fisheries, and these trout are going to be affected in some way. So according to this article, if these water temperatures drop very quickly, so let's say, on last week the water temperature was 52 degrees, and all of a sudden we get a 15 degree 4 days, it doesn't give above 20, and these water temperatures crash. That's when these fish really get cold stunned, and that is when we get more of a trout kill. And again, according to everything that I have read and watched on the internet, again, a good YouTube video that I linked to was the Bite Me podcast out of Texas. If you guys don't know the Bite Me podcast, again, I linked that video for you guys to watch. It was the one that they released on Wednesday, and they talk specifically about these trout kills and cold water. So go watch those guys and get this information. They dive into it. And Captain Scott Knoll, he has been around forever, and he dives into it and gives a very good explanation. So, I'm diving in trying to give you the best information that I can. I have never experienced a trout kill, so I am trying to learn about this. But from what I understand, it's those very quick, dramatic drops in water temperature that are going to hurt these fish. So I guess the only good thing that I can say is it has been cold long enough where down here in South Carolina that it wasn't a dramatic drop in water temperature. These fish have had time to acclimate, to get used to the colder temperatures, so that now, with this elongated stretch, this cold stretch that's been here for probably the last 4 to 5 days, they are acclimated to it, and we won't have a trout kill. So, matter of fact, Keith just put something into the chat box that said North Carolina closed the speckled trout season as of tomorrow, Friday at 5 p.m. It's apparently due to the winter cold kill that is occurring and wanting to protect the fish population. So it looks like North Carolina may have been affected already. So guys, just keep an eye out. Go to your local DNR websites and make sure that, just keep track of what's going on with these. If trout seasons are going to be closed, you guys don't want to come back to a ramp with a bunch of trout and DNR be there. Check all of the regulations. These things are going to be changing because of the weather patterns that come through. Check your, SCDNR, North Carolina, I think it's called wildlife fisheries. I can't remember what the North Carolina one is, but the Georgia DNRs, the North Carolina DNRs, check your state regulations and stay on top of it, because I'm sure this is going to be a pretty fluid situation, going on until we start to come out of this cold weather. Now, the good thing about it is pretty much come Sunday and then all of next week, we are looking at highs right at 60 degrees. So this cold weather is going to be out of here. It's going to warm right back up again. The water temperatures are going to start pushing right back up again. And, we need some nice, good, bright, sunny days to warm this water to get these fish moving. So, unfortunately, if there is a fish kill, one of the things that Captain Scott Knoll mentioned, which I thought was very interesting, and again, guys, I linked the Bite Me podcast in the description, and I would encourage you guys to go over and watch that, because it is just full of great information. But he was saying that if there is like a major trout kill like they had years ago down in Texas, that the fishing was not very good because the bait fish was so overpopulated that basically the predator fish could eat anything they wanted, and the fishermen, the recreational fishermen, couldn't catch any fish, because, as Scott Knoll was saying, they could just swim around with their mouth open and just vacuum up bait fish. So, he's been around and he's been doing it his whole life. So I pretty much take that for almost gospel. He is so good. So, again, I've never experienced it. I don't know. I'm going to be going through it just like everybody else is. Oh, thanks, Keith. He just popped on and said, it's the Division of Marine Fisheries in North Carolina. Thank you. I appreciate that. So, yeah, make sure that you guys are checking the local regulations for that. But, I don't know how the, fish are going to react. But here's the good thing about it. When the water temperature starts warming up, these fish are going to start feeding. The bait fish are going to be active. So, once we hit that 50, 52 degree water temperature, the low and slow may be out the window, because if you push back into some creeks and see these bait fish starting to swim around and move around, you can pull a paddle tail at that same speed, because these fish are going to hunt it down. So, when you guys get out on the water, be very observant about what is kind of going on, and, and fish it that way. When I go back out, I'm going to start low and slow until I see what's going on out there. So that's kind of what I'm going to be doing. That is the best thing, get out, observe what, is going on. So Steve said, actually, January 2018 was the last snow. I remember getting some dustings down here and things like that, maybe an inch, but I can't remember, an accumulation of, that 5 inches. And I've been here pushing 25 years, and this is the most snow that I've seen. So yeah, so guys, 30 minutes, man, I tell you what, it has absolutely flown by tonight. Throw in any questions that you guys have. Um, Wahid Witherspoon, I'm sorry, I missed your question. Do you mind explaining trout slick? Yeah, so I think you are referring to maybe a slick on top of the water. So basically, you can tell where there's some trout because there will almost be an oil slick that will appear on the surface of the water. And because I've seen it quite a few times, and a matter of fact, I remember very vividly, quick story here, that I saw a slick and I casted right in front of the slick and picked up like a 20-inch trout. I mean, it was fantastic. So when you see these oil slicks appear on top of the water, the way it was explained to me is as trout eat fish, they will actually regurgitate up some fish, and fish are oily. And when they regurgitate, that oil will hit the top of the water and actually form, it looks like an oil slick on top of the water. And when you see those, more than likely, it's a trout or a school of trout. So yes, pitch around it, throw around it, and you will pick up some trout around these oil slicks, okay, or a trout slick. Now, some people have said, now I have not experienced this, that they smell like watermelon. That if you smell watermelon around these trout slicks, that trout is there. Never experienced it. I have heard it. Don't know, but I'm throwing it out there. If you guys are there and you get a whiff of watermelon, that yeah, start throwing a bait around. Okay, so there's one of those old wives' tales that old fishermen and old timer guys they always talk about. So Wahid, I hope that answered your question. I'm sorry I missed it, but yeah, I think that's what you were talking about as a trout slick. So yeah, so guys, again, if you have any questions, throw them on down there, and and I will get to it before we wrap up. But until then, I always tell people I've got. Gosh, I kind of lost my train of thought here. I've got Spotify up, DCO Live on Spotify. So if you guys like to listen to podcasts, you can go over there and listen to all of the DCO Lives in podcast form. Just search DCO Live and it'll pop up. I appreciate everybody who has gone over there and started listening to those. I'm starting to get a pretty good following. And if it really starts to gain some traction, I may do some Spotify only episodes over there with some different topics and kind of do DCO Live here on YouTube. Still upload those to Spotify, but yet have some other topics over there as well. And if you can't get enough of me on the radio, right now, if you go to iHeartRadio and go to the Outdoor Radio Network, Captain Bob has a radio show called On the Hook with Captain Bob, and he interviewed me on Sunday, and that interview has been running all week long. So we talk about a lot of things over there. Go give it a listen. If you don't catch it during the radio hours, you can go on to Spotify, search On the Hook with Captain Bob, and he's got all the episodes, and my episode is on there. So go over there and give that a listen. I thought it was really good. It was a good conversation between Captain Bob and I. And again, we talk winter fishing, we talk rod and reel maintenance, just a bunch of stuff over there. It's an hour long, again, a podcast. You can listen to it audio or watch the video portion of it. So, um, yeah, thank you. Yeah, man, no problem. No problem. I'm glad I got to you. So, guys, again, I really appreciate you. It's been about 30 minutes. I will be back next week and we will do this all again. If you guys get out on the water and you do some fishing, shoot me a message. Let me know how it went so that we can kind of discuss it next week. Again, I'm going to try to get out. Maybe I can get out in the afternoon next week after work, or because I don't think I'm going to get out this weekend. The weather just isn't the best. So, I think I'm just going to give it some time, let this weather kind of kick back up, warm back up, get this water temperature back up, and kind of go from there. So I've been taking a couple weeks off, and by the time I get back out on the water, I am gonna be ready to do some fishing. I'm ready for some late winter, early spring fishing to kick back off again. So, guys, I really appreciate each and every one of you. And remember, conservation starts with you. Release a fish for somebody else to enjoy. Guys, I appreciate each and every one of you. I will see you next week on DCO Live.